Okay, today, the 10th of June, we did ESP. Just going to mute everyone so it's nice and quiet. And we'll bring up what we did today, which was ESP number 8. Which is not that one. So, this ESP thing I don't want to have up at the moment. Try later, move that away. Okay, so week 8, so we'll do the slide show, play from start. ESP, here we go. So that was our homework. I've written it in neato writing. Most did, like Kate, this is her Kahoot. Steph did hers as well. Danny didn't do, Leo did. Zoe didn't do, Adina did. Fashion, this is the example of the Kahoot that Suzanne sent me. Elissa did hers and Davor did his using that one. And Valentina just sent the quiz here, which has got lots of stuff on hers community services. So thank you those who did their homework. And today we're looking at pedagogy, which is how to teach, and using technology in ESP, English for Specific Purposes classes. So what is pedagogy? I asked the students, which is how to teach. And in ESP classes, we need to think about when we're teaching how to blend the lower and higher order thinking. Lower being understanding, recalling, remembering, and the higher creating and evaluating and analysing. And we looked, I actually printed out a thesis, which is just here, by Richard Smith. But I've just summarised it. It's based on students studying online business ESP course in Tunisia. And this is the thesis, this breakdown, the study design, the population. But I've got this here just to show you that I've summarised it, English for business purposes, and I'll show you the 7 areas I think he recommends to improve students' engagement when you're teaching them online at the end. We talked about synchronous and asynchronous, meaning together, two together, and this is when one communicates and then the other catches up after. So basically doing work on your own and then catch up. So our diploma classes, we have 1:30 till roughly 3 synchronous, then I let you guys go off to some asynchronous where you do your own study, like you're making Kahoots and things like that, and then come back at again 7:30 till 8:30. And open learning, the more open, the more autonomous it is for the students. So synchronous is at the same time, real place, real time. Asynchronous is unreal place, unreal time. You're learning separately, but you come together again. Normally on an online lesson, you'd be doing synchronous again. So you have, like for us, synchronous, asynchronous, and synchronous again. This is normally how they operate. And online learning, open, the more open it is, the more independent the learner is. Traditional way is a lockstep approach, which means that students' individual needs aren't considered so much. It's more the group's goals where all the assignments are due at the same time and they work together. So traditional has a lockstep approach and online can be a bit more adaptable. The advantages of online, that it's more flexible, usually cheaper, and you probably have to become more self-disciplined and realise it's your own responsibility. And sometimes there's more choice if you do online. You can look around and find the course that suits you. And some disadvantages would be that if you're actually there, you can talk to your teacher. You might become frustrated or disengaged if you can't talk to your teacher. And the teachers may lose track of students' progress. Like I have a little blue book each time you do an assignment, but it can be a week or so out of date. And online materials, difficult to answer when you can have multiple answers that are possible. And often it's hard to understand what the teachers or the students' problems are if you can't talk to the students. So that's why they recommend, like once a month, we have Zoom one-on-one chats, which I do with the diplomas. The role of the teacher, it can be from one extreme to the other, really, depending on the course and the teacher. But basically, the course is set up for you to learn autonomously. But some teachers offer more, and in the way of offering, they have wraparound materials, which is online materials that are conversational in style and include lots of examples, and the students write about it later. And the teacher also has to give a lot of feedback, preferably as soon as possible, because it will help motivate the students. And then have a face-to-face meeting periodically, or a Zoom lesson, Zoom meeting, I mean. Designing courses, things to consider, whether the students can do the activities on their own. Are there enough examples given? Is the rubrics clear? What responses are you expecting? Possible answers, answer key in the workbook and student book. And is there a glossary? And how will I manage my meeting with the students if it's all online? So designing other things to consider is to make sure that the questions are clearly understood. And also you can buy, for example, a business course commercially available, or you can make your own. But if you're buying the commercially available one, you need to look at these sort of things. Like, are there stuff online, DVDs and audio? Is there a website you can go to? What kind of supplementary material? And there's more and more online courses, like this is a Diploma of Hospitality with flexible study options, meaning you can do it online as well. So what about the activities? So you need to make sure they're adaptable. You have to think about how to brief the students before they do them. Additional materials needed. Do you need to communicate before they do it? That sort of thing. Just talking in general about online learning. It's from April, well, March is when Corona hit us. So basically in 1 month, Zoom's membership quadrupled, which means ×4, but I think it's gone up even more since then. Looking at how to engage students when they're doing online. You guys can check this out later. Okay, engaging. So summarising it by, it's easy to teach reading. Speaking, if internet's slow, whatnot, is hard. Put it on PowerPoints because you can put annotations, meaning the writing. Put videos up on how to do things if they're a bit lost. And students can make their own videos. Like some of you guys have made grammar lessons, I'll put on YouTube too. And give them work where they can do in pairs or in groups and make fun homework. And more about online lesson there. E-learning is when you use a learning platform and students use their laptops or desktops away from teachers. Talked about webcasts, which are like podcasts, but they're to the multitude of people. We don't use webcasts, we have a YouTube for our TESOL course. But if you're doing a webcast, would be a regular thing where you make a little video about a certain topic to do with TESOL. Web conferencing is something else you can do. Of course, you can use Zoom as well. It's got those ones, those software companies. A webinar and a webcast, we talked about webinars, basically, it's like a professional development. As a teacher, you'll need to do, they say 20 hours professional development a year, but you can download a journal and read that about your particular domain area you're teaching in. But a couple of webinars you can do for free, like Zoom has free ones. The other ones you might have to pay for. And webcast is like a podcast where it goes to the multitudes of people. So webinars, as you can see, it's just like what we're doing now, really. And a webcast is just I publish it online, like my YouTube videos. And discussion boards, there's such a thing as a Flipgrid that Microsoft has recently introduced, which is another discussion board that you can use, or we just use WhatsApp. So I'm looking at online learning with Corona. So some people saying good, some people saying bad. So basically it's just example there found. That depends on the student really, if they like the online learning or not. So if you're going to make your own online course, these are various things you need to think about. The example of an online learning module where you have a drop-down menu here and you can press here for the answers. Fairly basic one. Some people are technophobes. We talked about the fact that these people don't like technology. I think the best thing for them is to send them lots of how to do things. You make it your own and upload it on YouTube, because especially if they're a kinesthetic style learner, actually seeing it will help a lot. So how to use the internet. So basically, internet is a rich resource of material, and it should not be limited just for learning. It should be accessed for the teacher as well to help improve the lessons. An example for a business course online is you can ask them to investigate, for example, Nike, and look at these aspects of the Nike company. And that's a copy of a business course, English for Business Purposes, online, looking at a task where they've got to look at these sponsored links and work out what features of the links exist. Other things is look at business news. So you can look at, for example, comparing two sites like NBN and CNN, is it, in America? They've got ABC and SBS in Australia with the same business news between the two sites. You could critique articles. You could read it and then report back to the class, give a presentation online. Or you could compare accents, and you could also look at the archive material and see what's covered. Basically, these sites are the most popular. Look at the business section. And for kinesthetic learners, I haven't paid money, but we just looked briefly at how you have here the red is for the grammar and the green is for the verb. And if you double click here, it'll give you the meaning of those words too. But as we talked about, it's $3 a month. So some students like to learn more with the tactile way. So looking at the visual thesaurus might be an option for them if we're forced to go online, like we are now. And also books can have, for example, Longman's book. Once a month they research a company and write it up in fairly easy English for people. As you can see here, the company Nike was covered. So that's part of the package when you buy the English learning teaching software platform. And some publishers offer web quests as well, which means tasks and websites with QR codes that you go to. And some big companies like Oxford offer learning management systems where you buy that platform and it has everything there for you. Basically, the thesis said there's 7 ways to use online to make it a success, which is to have the chat rooms, to have it adaptable, to have online where you can assess them and then give them lots of resources, have web-based research tasks, have electronic tools to analyse the language, which we talked about, Turnitin, or publishing tools, or Excel and things like that. Have them learn about that. And have web conferencing. So, and have them all talk, like I give you all a discussion point, like with the Kahoot we did for homework. And you could even consider making a website. And that's the conclusion. Now we talked about pedagogy. The Victorian government has the 5 E's as their policy for pedagogy, which is engage, explore, explain, elaborate, evaluate. And they're touched on a little bit in the noticing hypothesis. Look at pedagogy, which was introduced by someone called Schmidt in 19 something or other, no, 2012 maybe. So he says that we need to have our deliberate learning mind switched on to be able to notice, which means to look and compare the differences if we want to have them acquire the language. And then in a bit more detail, Kumar Vedelevu in 1994 said that it's necessary for us to use the well-trusted methods and approaches and go through them pragmatically, which means in a practical way. So Schmidt, okay, so his first publication was in the 1990s. This I mentioned we don't really need to know. Just under pedagogy, I found this material, including Rod Ellis's input-output hypotheses. This also mentions noticing, which Schmidt mentioned. That actually means deliberate learning and comparing. And then we have here, if you do the comparing, then it should stay in your short-term memory. But if you actually integrate it, which means apply it or use it, it should stay in your long-term memory. And then you have the output. That was something Rod Ellis came up with, this guy here. And you can read more in his second language acquisition book. And two people called Anderson and Colwart, I think his name is, they expanded on Bloom's taxonomy for education, or of education. So they have included a bit more in the way of higher and lower order thinking. So I'm just going through all this because it's probably too much information. So that they say to include more in the way of designing. But in summary, last little bit, so looking at another site now, different to the first one, there are a few ways that ICT can help. If you're doing this genre-based, which means task-based teaching of ESP, as a lot of teachers do, you use technology to announce the assignment and for information about the course, and then the course content, which is more detail, forum for discussion, resources, actually, you can close off the assignment if it's past its due date and give feedback on the assignment, and poll, which is what you thought, good, bad, or otherwise. Okay. So these are the ICT-based tools. This is the teaching process, which they say showcase, highlight, and transfer. And the learning process is coming back to what we said before about the noticing hypothesis in the 1990s. Schmidt created such a phenomenon, saying that in the English teaching world, there's a stage of second language acquisition called noticing, and then comparing and then integrating. And there's such a thing as a proto-syllabus, which means it's a task-based syllabus. Okay, and once again, you guys can read through, and that's what we did today on the 10th of June about pedagogy and using technology. And it's our second last ESP lesson. We've got one more next week. Good. All right, and I'll stop recording.